You spot Moni halfway up a garrison watchtower, her legs wrapped around the scaffolding as she cranes to look over the fence through a pair of holoculars. You clear your throat, and she peers down at you in waves.
Soul! Come on up here! I want to ask you something!
You clamber easily up the scaffolding. Moni gives you a high five.
Here, look through these.
Moni says, shoving the holoculars into your hands. You raise them to your eyes and look where she's pointing. A long ways out, much farther than the expeditions are going, you spot a dark humanoid shape moving through the towering fungal forest.
See him?
Moni asks.
It's Dis, I swear it is. He's always sneaking out over the walls.
So what? Moni stares at you.
So what?
She repeats, aghast.
He's gonna get in trouble!
Only if you tell on him.
Well, yeah.
Moni sputters.
But someone should? The adults say we're not supposed to go outside the colony unless it's on expedition.
Moni says, taking the holoculars back and looping them around her neck.
And Dis just goes whenever he wants. What if he gets hurt? What if he dies?
She wrinkles her nose.
What if he picks up a weird alien disease and comes back with 3 heads?
Moni scratches her cheek, where acne's made her skin dry and sore looking.
Ow.
She mutters, as bits flake off.
I just don't know what to do about it.
She says.
What do you think?
Try to convince him to stay inside? Moni barks out a laugh.
Yeah, right. I tried that. He told me to F off.
She says.
And I talked to Tang, but I guess they're not talking either. I don't know what's up with that. The colony's got rules for a reason.
Moni says, staring off into the wilderness.
If we do our own thing and don't care about the rules, we're all gonna be toast. Kinda like a sports ball team. We're all doing different stuff, but we all gotta play by the same rules so we can get as many points as we can.
Anemone, Soul.
You look down at the ground where a passing colonist is waving up at you.
You two, get down from there. It's not safe.
Okay, sorry, I'm on watch.
Moni shouts back, indicating her holoculars. She shoots you a smile.
I guess we should get inside the watchtower, huh?
You both climb the rest of the way to the guard platform. Moni heaves herself over the edge and reaches down to help you up, and you notice that her hands are all banged up and scabbing over with blue scales. Probably from scampering all over the place the way she does. She notices you looking and laughs awkwardly. She runs her hand through her fluffy hair.
Maybe if I get beat up enough, I'll have so many scales I won't have no more acne.
She jokes. Cal waves at you as you enter the garden, leaning on his shovel.
Hey, Soul.
He calls, but his eyes look past you, down the path to where Anemone is beating the absolute tar out of a training dummy. Her fierce battle cries echo across the colony, making Cal wince.
She's been going totally hard lately, huh?
He says. He scratches his face, smearing dirt across his cheek.
She asked me yesterday if I wanted to spar with her. She said it would be good for self-defense.
Cal smiles sadly at the memory.
I told her I don't want to fight. Not her, not a training dummy, and not anything on this planet. For real. I've never seen her get so mad at me. She called me a baby and told me I'm just gonna end up forcing everyone to protect me because I'm weak or helpless or whatever.
He seems upset and stabs the ground a few times with his shovel.
I just don't think it's right to fight anyone, especially the Xenox. They were here first.
He says.
What do you think, Soul?
Violence is never the answer. Cal looks relieved.
I'm glad you think so too.
He says.
Everyone's always telling me to see both sides of the argument. Like they think that just because I'm young I haven't made up my mind yet.
He shrugs.
I just think if you have to hurt someone to get what you need, you don't deserve to have it.
His eyes go back to Anemone. She stops sparring with the training dummy and is looking up at the gardens as she has a drink. Neither she nor Cal wave at the other. Cal clenches his fist.
There's gotta be a way to figure out how to live in peace with all the cool things that live on this planet.
He says.
Like, hey, look at this weed I saw growing over here.
Cal has such strong convictions. It's one of the things you like best about him, even if some people disagree with him. You spend a few hours with Cal in the garden as he shows off the area that he's getting ready for the next planting season. The adults are really starting to trust him with more planning as he gets older, and he beams with pride. When you finally head out, you're just as dirty as he is, but you feel so much lighter. You visit Cal and Socks before your work shift one morning, just to check up on them. As you expected, Cal has Socks out for her twice daily playtime.
Hey, so,
He says, waving.
look what I taught Socks to do.
At his gesture, Socks stands up on her hind legs and wiggles her upper body at you, like she's waving too. It's impressive. Who's a smart girl? You are! Next, Cal gestures in a circle, and Socks curls up in a ball. Then he raises both hands in the air like a scary monster, and Socks rears up and chitters menacingly. Cal says pew pew, and Socks rolls over and sticks all of her feet in the air. You count at least 14 legs! What happens when she outgrows her box? Socks clambers up in Cal's arms, almost toppling him over with her weight, and curls up across his shoulders like a scarf. She looks seriously heavy.
Well, people hardly use this barn anymore.
Cal says, adjusting her weight.
It's just storage. Maybe she can live in the rafters?
You're pretty sure your mom comes in here often, as the head of geoponics, but you hold your tongue. Socks hasn't been discovered yet. Maybe she's really good at hiding. How do you find food for her? Cal looks distressed.
It's really hard.
He admits.
She eats so much right now. Tons of leaves and grasses, and those rocks, of course. I think she swallows them all together and then chews it up in her guts, like a float cow. Her teeth look like they go all the way down her throat. I don't know if I can keep hiding how much food she eats, though.
Cal says, sadly. Does she get lonely? Cal says, looking down at the ground.
I think so. She used to sleep all the time, but now she needs to run around and climb a lot more. I still come here every morning and evening to let her out.
He says defensively.
And she goes back into her box right away when I tell her. She's a good dilly pillar, I promise. She knows she's not supposed to go outside without me.
He pets her snout.
I think maybe she's just not a baby anymore, you know?
See you later. It's your birthday! You wake up from a night of blissfully peaceful dreams. No nightmares, no premonitions, just a pleasant feeling of contentment. You stretch your arms over your head, blinking in the watery, quiet sunlight that seeps through the porthole window. Things are always changing on Vertumna, but you can't help but feel like things are changing for yourself too. Not just your body, but your mind, your emotions, your future. 14 is going to be your year. Your parents have been working around the clock since the last attack, trying to get the fields right again in time for this year's planting. Spark snow has already started falling, and every day they come home complaining about having to clear it. They asked you to ping them when you're awake so you can share your birthday breakfast in your parents' quarters instead of sitting shoulder to shoulder with everyone else during breakfast service in the canteen. You fire them a message and lie back in your bunk, watching dust motes float lazily in the light. After a minute, there's a knock at the door. It's Auntie Seedent! She sweeps into your room in a bustle of skirts and shawls and sits down beside you on your bunk.
Oh, look at you!
She says,
Happy birthday, beautiful. 14 years old.
She leans in and gives you a motherly kiss on the forehead. It's been years since she took care of you in the children's creche. But all the kids still call her Auntie, and think of her as a close relative. Her sweet baking bread smell is as comforting as it ever was. She sits back and takes one of your hands in both of hers.
Sol, ever since I held you in my arms as a baby, I knew you were so special, so important. You're becoming a young adult, but I want you to know I will always, always be here for you, just like your mom and dad.
She says, firmly, Thanks, Auntie Seedent. She smiles and tucks an unruly lock of your hair behind your ear.
I guess you're old enough to call me Aunt Anne now, if you like. Or even just Anne. Now, come on in here,
Aunt Anne says, spreading her arms wide.
Give us a great big hug.
You hug her, enveloping yourself in the warm and familiar softness of her. Over her shoulder, you see Moni standing in the doorway. Well, her hair anyway. She's been growing it out, and there's no hiding it behind a corner. She skips into your quarters.
Happy birthday, bud!
She says, bouncing on your bunk.
Way to get older. Enjoy being 2 years older than me for a few months.
Thanks.
I thought you were on your way to the med bay.
Anne tells her, and Moni shrugs. Anne turns to you.
Annie is supposed to get her menstruation cessation implant today.
She says.
Mom!
Moni hollers.
Gross! Sol doesn't want to hear about my period.
Anne smiles fondly at her daughter.
It's nothing to be ashamed of, Annie. Getting your period is a beautiful thing. It reminds us that we have the ability to make life. It's a sign you're growing up and becoming an adult, and ready to take on the responsibility of taking care of that life.
Moni wrinkles her nose and throws herself on your bed.
I'm never making life. Ew, pass!
What's the matter? Scared?
No.
Moni exclaims, punching you in the arm.
No, of course not. It just sucks that now everyone's talking about how I'm becoming a woman and how I'll finally look different than my brothers. Duh!
She points at you.
Don't you start too. I'll still kick your ass at sports ball, even with cramps.
Your parents finally arrive, still damp from the fields and bringing in the smell of crisp, tangy snow on their clothes.
Oh, look! Birthday visitors!
Your dad exclaims.
Anne, are you staying for breakfast?
Anne reaches into her bag and brings out a stack of tiffins.
No, thank you. But I brought your order with me from the kitchens, seeing as I was stopping by.
She pats your hand one more time.
Happy birthday again, Sol. You'll always be my baby, even when you're all grown up.
Your mom shakes her head as Anne and Moni leave.
Oh, Anne.
She laughs.
Sentimental to the core.
She starts laying out the cutlery for breakfast.
But I don't know how the colony would manage without her in the children's creche.
She says, and points a fork at you.
Family is more than the people that birthed you, Sol. And don't you forget it.
Utopia is working near the gates. This area has been deemed safe enough for kids to go for a hike, so long as you're back before dark and never go out during glow.
There ain't a lot to see out there.
She says.
A logging camp, a few fields, some nice lookouts. Keep your eyes peeled for useful things, like that there mushwood log.
She points to a light, sturdy piece of wood by the side of the road.
Lumber carrier must have dropped it. It's fairly safe out there, but that don't mean totally safe.
She cautions.
Don't go too far. And if you see anything what scares you, run like heck and make a ton of noise.
She helps tighten the straps of your backpack.
What you hoping to see out there, sweets?
Stuff to collect. Utopia laughs.
Take nothing but photos, leave nothing but footprints.
She teases.
Suppose it's different on a brand new planet like this one.
She says.
We actually do need samples of basically everything, especially stuff what might be edible.
She slaps you on the back.
Things regrow pretty wild out there.
She adds.
If you've picked a place clean, give it a year. Bet it'll look like you were never there at all.
You leave the path and sneak through a strand of musk trees to one of the little sawmills dotting this area. It's a small but busy operation. 3 people feeding mush tree logs into some kind of machine, while a 4th one directs a 4-legged robot with the plasma saw mounted on the front. Stay and watch what they're doing. You see how they choose which trees to cut and how they do it. When one tree crashes down, it almost seems like the others are wincing. It's probably just your imagination, though. They aren't planting new ones or leaving any behind. You know the mush trees regrow every year. But can they still regrow when you cut down everything like this? Even the smaller trees and bushes are getting ground up for mulch, with a big scary grinder that sounds like a roaring beast. The entire process makes you uneasy, but also proud of how industrious your colony is. You let your mind wander as you're walking, and bumble straight into a field of gelatinous blobgrass. Totally transparent, the sticky fawns are hard to see but even harder to ignore. Especially once they start glomming onto your boots and slowing you down. It's like trudging through thick mud. You stubbornly decide to keep going, paying close attention to the visible signs of this blobgrass field. And there aren't many, just an absence of other vegetation. Look for a path through it. There it is! You can hop along from that rock to that fallen log, then climb over those old pieces of surveying equipment. You get through the villainous blobgrass. You spend a bunch of time on it though, and it takes some tricky balancing. It's tiring. You walk into a clearing and immediately stop in your tracks. There's a Unisaur here! You've seen them before, but they still fill you with a sense of awe. Be as quiet as possible. As you settle in to watch it from behind a strand of mush trees, the Unisaur looks up towards you, startled by your movement. You try to hold perfectly still and quiet your breathing. After a tense moment, it goes back to its business. First, it sniffs out a good tree and rubs the scent glands in its neck against it thoroughly. Then it pees, like a crystal waterfall on a rock. Everything it does seems magical. Next, it sharpens its horns against a rock, which is scored with marks from having done this before. This must be its favorite sharpening rock. You notice the bulge in its stomach. It must have had a huge meal recently. Eventually, it curls up for a nap. You quietly sneak away. This was so wonderful, for Tumna is a magical place. You find Dis sitting on a large flat rock on a hilltop, eating a sandwich and looking totally at home, far from the colony walls. Join him quietly. You sit down next to Dis and get out your own lunch. Some soy cheese cubes and crackers from the cafeteria. You listen to the jungle sounds and think how nice it is just to be free and in the open and not confined to a tiny box hurtling through space. Then, quite out of the blue, the rock you're both sitting on stands up and starts to walk down the hill. Oh, okay. You crouch and look over the edge of the rock. You're a couple meters off the ground, balancing on spindly legs like a spider's. 8, 10 of them, evenly spaced. You realize the rock also has eyes at regular points, which you'd mistaken for shiny black pebbles embedded in the stone. One of them swivels up to stare at you. You gulp and try not to scream. Dis gets shakily to his feet, trying to keep his balance as the creature under you slowly clambers forward. He grabs your hand to help you up. Try to be brave. You swallow hard to control your fear. Barely. Actually, this is biologically fascinating. You're too busy taking mental notes about this creature's anatomy and behavior to worry about your own safety. It totters along using its long legs to pick its way through the bushes and uneven terrain. It must have had its legs curled up under its body earlier to perfectly camouflage itself as a rock. After a minute, the creature crouches down to look at something and the two of you jump off. You're impressed that Dis kept his cool and you tell him so.
Actually,
he says,
I was kind of freaking out inside.
You laugh and say you were too. It's funny. Dis might suck with people, but is kind of a badass when it comes to non-people things. Go home. When there's no sports ball game on, the security team who trains nearby use the field to practice with long-range rifles. As you show up to sports ball practice, Calm is helping take down the net.
Sorry, kiddos,
he says.
Rhett wants us practicing with the big guns today, and we can't have you running around the place. The bullets in these drone rifles are heat-seeking, and even though they're programmed to avoid human targets, safety first.
Today was supposed to be our day to have the sports ball field.
Cal complains.
You soldiers don't even want to play sports ball. You just want to shoot your dumb, noisy guns.
Moni bounces over.
Hello? They have more than just huge guns. They have cool stun gloves that are like magic lightning arcing out of your fingertips. It's super galactic.
Cal shakes his head. That's not the point. Stand up to those soldiers. You rip the net out of Calm's hands and start putting it back up. Anemone looks nervous.
Here comes Security Chief Rhett. He looks scary, angry, Soul.
Don't back down. You stand your ground when the security chief tries to intimidate you, with his loud voice and his big chest. Today was your day to use the field. Rhett sees the fire in your eyes, and after a minute, he laughs and gives in.
You're a tough one, huh, Soul?
He says, a twinkle in his eye.
Okay, you're right. Today was your day to use a sports ball field. Calm, we'll have to train with something else today.
Huh, that wasn't so hard. You can hear your dad sneeze all the way from engineering. It's explosive, like he's trying to scare away predators. He's wiping his nose as you approach, on a handkerchief blotted with shimmering pink. Lately, he's also surrounded by a fine dusting of pink pollen that clings to him wherever he goes. You keep brushing the glitter off things in your quarters. He gives you a hug, then brushes pollen off your shoulder, laughing self-consciously. You haven't heard him laugh much lately. He's been working hard trying to improve the colony's food supply. He's showing signs of malnourishment too. Though your mom is worse. You're worried for both of them. Your dad's skin is shiny in patches. He sees you staring and rubs his hands over his arms. Sparkling dust poofs off of him in little clouds, scintillating in the light.
Oh, yeah, that's a new symptom.
He says.
Seems harmless, though.
You should stay inside. Your dad laughs.
You and your mom, 2 soybeans in a pod. She said the same thing.
You wait for him to follow up with some explanation for why he's not listening to both of you. He doesn't. He just turns his attention back to his work. Your dad sniffles.
Gosh, I feel like someone stuffed a whole potato pod up my nose.
He says.
Like I could just poke a stick up there and pop. Fresh potato juice.
Ugh, Dad, gross. He just grins.
What? It's true.
You follow his gaze out to the fields, and to the lands outside the gate.
I wonder if the foragers could use an extra hand.
He muses to himself.
Yeah, maybe I'll join them out there tomorrow.
Neither of your parents are taking proper care of themselves. They're so stressed out from the poor harvest and low food supplies. They try not to let you see it, but you can tell. Maybe your dad is right. A little seasonal illness is nothing compared to the danger of running out of food. The colony is surrounded by tall walls that keep out most of the local exofauna. The key word being most. You often report to work to find that an entire row of corn has been ripped up and carried away in the night by something that can fly over the walls. All that's left in the morning is torn up dirt and is a dusting of iridescent powder. It happens so often that your mom has set up cameras to catch whatever it is in action. The next day you have your answer. Dorbs moths. Giant blue moths with wingspans almost as long as your outstretched arms, They can rip the corn right from the ground.
Wow, amazing!
Cal says as you review the holovid.
I didn't know Dorps moths could do that.
Dorps moths are pretty cute, in a bug-like sort of way. Fuzzy dog-like heads, pretty iridescent wings, long elegant whiskers. They'd be cuter if they weren't flying away with entire stalks of corn. You don't want to run the risk of accidentally poisoning your own crops, and Cal objects to trapping them. The most humane solution is to discourage them from stealing your crops at all. You and Cal work on setting up scarecrows, but after a couple of unsuccessful days, you have to admit that you just don't know what scares these adorable little moths. What even eats them anyway? Guess I'm gonna have to find out. Cal puzzles over the security footage.
They fly in from the north, especially around quiet.
He says,
Maybe that's where their breeding ground is? If someone goes there, maybe we could figure out what kind of animal they're scared of. If they're plant eaters, something's gotta hunt them for food.
If you figure it out, it'd be a big help towards securing the colony food supply. You're at lunch with your parents. Sliced soy cakes and watery broth again. Great, when they put down their cutlery and look at each other. Then you.
Sol,
Your mom says.
there's something we should tell you. We've tried to shelter you from some things, but we think you should know why we've been working so hard in geoponics. There's a meeting after lunch, and I want you to come with us.
Okay. You follow your parents to the council room. Marz has also tagged along, and you take a seat near them as your mom and Aunt Anne stand to address the council. After Eudicot officially calls the meeting, she gestures to your mom.
I'm not going to mince words.
Your mom says firmly.
All of our efforts to increase food production in geoponics have failed, especially given the failure of the pixie beans. The destruction of the fields during the last attack put the nail in our coffin. By the end of the year, the colony will run out of food.
The rest of the council murmurs in concern. You and Marz exchange horrified looks.
You've been doomsaying about our food supply for 2 years, Flulu.
Rhett questions.
Do you mean to say we're past the point of no return?
Your mother nods grimly.
I'm afraid so. Even with rationing, without securing a redundant food source, our supplies will run out by wet season.
She gestures to Anne, whose face is grave.
Anne and I have gone over the supplies and come up with food plans. We've crunched the numbers.
Your mom sighs and spreads her hands.
I'm sorry. Geoponics should have been producing better by now. We should have been able to wean ourselves off of soy rations. During wormhole transit, when we lost our hydroponics in the hull breach,
She sighs again.
I know I've said it so many times, but our crops just don't grow here. We needed those algae tanks. We needed the microbial soil from Earth.
It's not Mom's fault. It's not. The survival of the colony shouldn't rest on one person's shoulders. It's not fair. She's been working harder than anyone. She did everything she could. The council mumbles agreement. You decide they probably never really blamed her or your dad. The only holdout is Marz, who crosses her arms and grumbles that it's clearly a problem with leadership.
So, what do we do now?
Instance asks.
Starving to death isn't an option.
No, it isn't.
Your mom replies.
We need to secure a food source this year, before our rations run out. We're working double shifts in geoponics, but it's not enough. We need more people planting, tending, turning the soil. We need more hands.
I can pull back the surveyors and focus on foraging native plants.
Utopia offers.
Even the young folks can help if they've proven themselves around the survey equipment. I'll send out a holo message later.
This has been the burden of geoponics for too long.
Eudicot says.
It's time we all step up for our future.
The council nods in agreement. Your stomach rumbles ominously. Drifts of spark snow make this area hard to pass through. Your feet keep sinking into it, and you have to work to get them free with every step. The only way forward here is through an especially deep area. Take a break and play in it. You make a snow buddy, or at least you try. The tiny blue crystals don't pack together very well, and the stuff quickly melts just from the heat of your body. The acidic snow gives you a hot, scratchy rash between your fingers. You probably should have worn gloves. You appraise your lumpy snow buddy. It looks a little sad. Maybe it just needs some accessories. With some twigs and grass and a weird kind of jelly you find seeping out of the ground, you give your buddy antlers and fur. It kind of looks like a snow bush bub. Dis and you are surveying together, though he's mostly just throwing rocks at things and seeing what happens.
Ugh. This is so boring,
he complains.
We've seen everything here already. The other surveyors are going to cool places, like the Sebequia swamp, places that are actually dangerous.
The Valley of Vertigo is cool.
Yeah, I've been there,
Dis says.
It's neat, but Utopia sends people there to forage, and I just want more adventure than picking berries, you know?
Dis goes back to chucking rocks and complaining.
We're just here all the time,
he says.
Even though we know everything about it. Utopia says we need to come back every year and take new readings. In quiet here, and in Pollen in the Valley. And we have to be patient, because we can't just take stuff without letting nature replenish itself.
He sighs.
And, I mean, I get it, but it's still so boring. I want to explore other places.
It's a sunbasker. No, a whole herd of them. They're creatures that you personally discovered and got to name. Study them. You've seen this herd a few times traveling through this stretch of wilderness. All day they bask in the sun on the top of a plateau. Now that evening is coming, they're coming down into the plains to forage. They like to hang out in big groups and mostly lie around all day being lazy. Sounds like the life. Submit the data. Utopia's happy to have more information on that rare herd of sunbaskers. One of your jobs as a surveyor is to document the flora and fauna through photographs. You've spotted some kind of baby photosynth, all shaggy purple fur with leaves growing out of its head. It's grazing up on top of a large mushroom cap. You've got a camera built into your holopalm, but it's not equipped to capture difficult shots like this. You'll need to put in the work. Find a good angle. You climb up a tree and get an angle from above, not disturbing your subject. It comes out great. Very avant-garde. Utopia's glad for the shot. You find Dis sitting in the mouth of one of the wall's drainage sewers. In wet season, excess rainwater is diverted out here so it doesn't flood inside the walls. In the meantime, it looks like Dis has set up a little base here, with pillows and a stash of snacks. His alien communication device hisses with static. He looks up from his holoscreen as you pop your head inside the drain.
Hey, Soul,
he says quietly, before going back to the game he'd been playing. What are you playing?
You haven't heard of it,
he says, without looking up.
I made it myself.
You squeeze into the narrow drain and sit down next to Dis. On his holopad is a picture of Marz, and you watch him drag a match from the sidebar and drop it on her face. Little animated flames wiggle over her pictures, leaving parts of it looking charred. It's pretty crude, but you think you get the point. Where did you learn how to do that?
It's pretty simple,
Dis says. The light from his holoscreen reflects in his eyes as he looks at you in the gloom.
People on Earth used to make this kind of stuff all the time, and I have a lot of time to learn new things.
What happened with Marz? Dis shrugs.
Same thing that always happens,
he says. He resets the game, then drags a bomb from the sidebar onto the picture of Marz. It explodes and the picture disintegrates.
She booked my name down for every appointment with the nano printer, because she thinks my clothes are always torn up and dirty all the time.
He continues.
So I got in trouble for wasting resources. I tried to tell them it was her, but Marz never gets in trouble. Everyone likes her.
He mumbles.
But it's fine. I don't need anyone to like me. I don't care if they hate me. I hate them.
Oh, I see. Dis goes back to playing his game, content not to talk to you. I want to try.
Sure,
Dis replies. He links his holopalm to yours, and you feel the haptics pulse as the game files transfer. You open the game and are presented with an option. Whose picture do you choose? Marz. Definitely Marz. You load up a picture of Marz. Screw her. She's so bossy and mean. Dis is right. She's the worst. You drag a knife from the toolbox onto the picture. Thunk. Right through the face. It feels good. In a weird way. You probably shouldn't think about that too hard. You spend a few hours letting off steam with Dis, loading different pictures of your classmates, and commiserating about life in the colony. After a while, he even starts to smile a little bit.
I don't really want to hurt anyone.
Dis confides in you.
Sometimes, it feels like I have so many angry thoughts inside my head. There's no room for anything else.
He turns off his holopalm and looks down at his hands.
Even if it makes me feel kinda gross after. It's better than feeling numb.
The mood in geoponics is tense. Everyone is working themselves to the point of exhaustion trying to get enough plants in the ground to survive this year. The garden is such an extravagance normally, but during a famine it's almost irresponsible. Your mom hasn't had a lot of time to weed here lately, so you donate some of your free time to cleaning up around the flowers. They're pretty, but not edible. What a shame. You're crossing a clearing when you hear a terrible cracking, pounding sound. A bushbub bursts through the tree line, barreling straight towards you. Whatever's making a bushbub run, you're pretty sure you don't want to be on the business end of it. Bravely stand your ground. The creature pounds past you, its powerful stone-like gorilla arms smashing the ground. It doesn't even seem to see you, and goes around you without even looking at you. You look around, but there's no sign of whatever motivated the bushbub to run so fast. At least that's something to be grateful about. You're surveying some weird algae bloom when it starts to get dark. You pack up for the day and begin to head back to base when you see a cloud of Dorbs moths fluttering overhead. Them! The same villains that keep eating your crops! You decide to follow them. You creep silently after the Dorbs moths. They don't seem afraid of you or anything at all. The Dorbs moth eventually converge on a clearing where hundreds of them rest against stalks of giant fungal trees. The sound of their wings rubbing against each other is like music. The entire clearing glimmers with dust. It's so pretty! You stand there and watch for a few minutes. Suddenly, the peace of the clearing is broken by squeaking and chaos of flapping wings. The Dorbs moths all explode from their perches, sending clouds of choking dust into the air. Through the dust, you can see a Dorbs moth locked in a vicious battle with a small creature. It's all over so quickly. You watch the creature cling to the Dorbs moth's back as it flails around until it climbs up and rips out of the Dorbs moth's throat with its tiny, vicious teeth. More squeaking fills the clearing. From the trees descend an entire family of the things, and they set up upon the corpse of the Dorbs moth, like it's a kingly buffet. They hop around and hiss at each other, popping up like popcorn. The sound is incredible, like the screeching of a chair across the floor. The rest of the Dorbs moths have completely vanished. The cries of these tiny hunters must have scared them off. How horrible! You whip your holopalm open and record their squeaking and chittering as they devour their meal. If you play this, it's bound to scare the dwarves moths away from your fields, too. You don't think you would have believed it if you hadn't seen it with your own eyes. The little things. You decide you'll call them bounce weasels, are like 1/5 the size of the dwarves moths, and they are even more cute than the moths. You're pretty involved in recording the bounce weasels, so you don't notice another family of them moving into position over your head until it's too late. Like the dwarves moth, you had the audacity to stand still for too long in their territory. You yelp as you're pelted by a hail of sharp-toothed creatures. Oh no! Endure it. You cover your head and neck, and the bounce weasels, well, bounce right off of you. Some of them cling to your jacket, nipping little holes into it, but when they can't get their teeth into you, they bounce away into the forest, chittering in anger. You can't wait to show Cal the battle of the cute versus cute. This planet is pretty cool. Plus, now you have an idea about how to keep the moths from stealing your crops. It's time for Vertumnalia, the yearly midsummer celebration when the colony gives thanks for its good fortune. Well, it would be. But as you file into the main square, you can't help but notice that the feast table is nearly empty. What Anne lacked in resources, she made up with care. The dishes are lovingly plated. Soy cakes glisten, steam rises from buns stuffed with mince. And there are great pitchers of vegetable broth rendered out from even the most inedible food scraps. There's a neat stack of sugar cubes for dessert. Whole sugar. What a luxury! And an underwhelming feast. That'll be the highlight. Governor Eudicot's welcoming speech this year is short. Her frail body trembles as she welcomes you all to Vertumnalia with a dry, whispery voice. Has to be helped off stage. Like all of you, she has been feeling the effects of the famine. Everyone clears away the chairs for the annual competition. Which one do you participate in this year? Bot Pentathlon. Com adds something new every year, but no one's really at their best given the rationing. Running around sweating in the hot sun seems like a luxury nobody can afford, even you energetic kids. The spectators listlessly wave fans as Com announces that this year's edition will be thumb wrestling. Last 30 seconds against Com or get a time penalty. Moni's face falls.
No fair!
She exclaims.
Com's the shipwide thumb wrestling champion. He talks about it all the time. He's the worst.
Com just shrugs and blows his whistle for you to get into position. Start the pentathlon. You don't beat Calm at the thumb wrestle. Nobody can. He's the best. But you do manage to hold on through 30 tense seconds of maneuvering and fake-outs and double fake-outs. The man is a master. In fact, the things you learn from Calm in those 30 seconds can be applied to the bot you have to wrestle at the end of the contest. You wonder how you never noticed before, how much of bot wrestling is finesse, not just brawn. You win handedly. Moni whines at Calm for being unfair, but she still takes second place. After the festivities, the whole colony takes a few days off for a break. Well, except for geoponics, and the foragers, and the kitchens, and everyone who uses the break from their usual work to help out in the places that didn't close. Okay, it's not really a break, but you try to take it easy anyway. Someone broke into the gardens last night and stole some green tomatoes. What a waste. Not only were they probably too bitter to eat, but now you don't have the seeds to replant. Your mom is furious. This sucks. Your mom calls everyone for an all-hands meeting. She looks grim as she surveys the group.
Alright, farmers, listen up. Based on my projections, geoponics should have been producing 70% of the colony's food by the end of our 3rd year.
She says.
The rest was to be provided by stored rations and hydroponic algae greenhouses aboard the Stratospheric.
The agriculturists all nod. Everyone knows where this is going.
Because we lost so much of our hydroponic equipment in the wormhole incident, as well as 90% of our soil and bacteria cultures, we're nowhere near the production we need to be at. We also would hope to have domesticated at least one native crop, but as we found from the pixie beans last year, we have some more work to do on that front.
She looks every one of you in the eyes.
You're my people. My family. I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. The colony is going to fail if we don't get a handle on agricultural production. People will die.
You feel a pit in your stomach that's not just from hunger. You can't imagine someone as strong as your mother just wasting away. Your mother pulls up a holoscreen outlining work plans for the season. You feel your own holopalm pulse as you receive a copy.
There's so much life here on this planet,
your mother says.
But it seems to fight us at every turn. I've sent soil chemistry analysis to your palms, courtesy of Geranium. The soil needs to be conditioned extensively to support earth crops. We need to cultivate more vertumnant crops in partnership with the foragers. We need to salvage what we can of hydroponics and get that up and running by the end of the year.
Your mother would never stoop to being beaten, but you can see the lines of fatigue around her eyes.
It'll take a superhuman amount of work to turn this around, but it is still possible,
she says.
You are the people who will save this colony. I believe in us and the miracles we can perform here. Thank you for being here to do the work. Now, let's get out there.
You play the recording of the squeaking bounce weasels for your mom and Cal.
You're sure this is going to work?
She asks when it's done.
It sounds annoying.
You swear it will work. You saw it while you were exploring. It might not sound like much, but the huge Dorbs moths are terrified of the little bounce weasels' hunting calls, and with good reason. You set up a speaker system and play the recording all night. The next day, there's no sign of the Dorbs moth. Your crops are completely safe.
I think it worked,
Cal says, sounding relieved.
Soul, you're a genius.
You're just glad that all your hard work isn't going to feeding those pesky moths anymore. More food for the colony. Utopia greets you warmly as you muster for your first expedition with the foraging team.
So, I'm glad you could make it. We need everyone we can get out here right now, boosting our food supplies.
I'm ready to sniff out those tasties.
Good luck hunting out there,
she says, handing you an oversized backpack. More like a basket than a pack.
Use your holopalm to identify edible and medicinal plants, and just throw them in here. I'll sort them back at base camp. Oh, and keep on the lookout for creatures. It's pretty peaceful out there in the valley, but even a little bug will get you if you're not careful. Go slow. Pay attention to your surroundings. If you're unsure about something, don't approach it. Stay on the path and don't get lost. We don't call it the Valley of Vertigo for nothing. Any questions?
What sort of things should I collect? Utopia shows you how to use your holopalm to determine if something is edible. There's a whole category on your holopedia, including photographs and scientific names. It's mainly plants, though there are some minerals and other things that don't look edible at first glance.
There's a lot out there we haven't found yet,
she says.
Document anything you find that looks like it could be useful, but don't put anything in your mouth until you check with me first. Even if it looks edible. Might be a lookalike. Even the plants are sneaky.
You're about to leave when Utopia snaps her fingers.
Hold up, Sol. We're also investigating some species we might domesticate. Those we'll want to tag and capture. Ideally, we're looking for herbivorous creatures that already live in herds, and either produce something edible or reproduce quick enough we can slaughter them for meat. If you see anything that fits the bill, tag them and bring them back.
You've heard of Ri0 before. Small, skittering pink creatures with many legs and eyes, like a spider. At least, they're usually small and cute. Not so much the case with this one. The Ri0 blocking your path is pretty large, probably about as tall as your waist, and it's growling at you over the carcass of something even bigger, which seems to be missing its head. Yuck. You're not sure if it killed or scavenged the dead animal, but it's dragged it onto the path and looks ready to fight you for it. Wait for it to leave. You back off and wait. It sits there and gnaws at the animal slowly for hours. It's disgusting. Eventually, it rolls over and takes a nap. Its many legs kicked up in the air and its tummy bulging. You try to sneak by, but it wakes back up with a hiss. It drags the rest of the carcass off into a tree, and you can finally pass. Your path is blocked by a massive 8-legged xenofauna. Something between a spider and a squid and a bear. It's in a range, grunting furiously and bashing itself against trees and rocks at random. You duck and hide as it glares in your direction, its breath heaving and dozens of eyes gleaming with madness. It's the same soft pink and purple you recognize from the multi-legged Ri0 that live in this area, but so much larger. Could this be a related species? Sing to it. This is a strange approach. You've seen it work in vids. Sometimes, music can soothe the savage beast. You sing a lullaby, and the great beast looks at you with curiosity. Eventually, its eyes drift closed, and it settles down, tucking its many legs underneath it. It must have been very tired to begin with, like a toddler who skipped their nap. Leave it. You leave the creature and move on. You come across a veritable feast of berry bushes. Gloopy, sagging bushes with enormous purple berries. They look delicious. Research them first. Oh, these purple berries? They're not even in the Holopedia as berries. There's some kind of explosive seed pod. You take a few steps back, careful not to set one off. Set them off from a safe distance. You shield yourself behind a tree and throw rocks at the bushes until, with a satisfying pop, 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 the explosive berries begin to trigger in a chain reaction. Each burst sends seeds flying in all directions like shrapnel, setting off nearby berry bushes. You then carefully cut a path through the thicket and continue on your way. A line of termite-like insects crosses the path here. Curious, you follow them to their destination. A massive sponge-like hive of crawling bugs writhing with life. The bugs are tending to larvae nested in the holes of the sponge, feeding on the rich royal jelly that oozes from the hive. You step in for a closer look and hear a warning hiss from above. Atop the hive is a queen whatever it is. Wait, no! She is the hive! Wait, this is a Squeedger hive! Her abdomen has swollen and lodged in the ground here, rendering her immobile, but not defenseless. The hive queen groans and growls at you, and the air prickles with the burning flavor of acid. She must have some sort of defensive acid spray. That jelly looks pretty edible, though. Go around it. A bristle slug is rooting around in the underbrush. It's like a little porcupine with no legs. Well, little is relative. It comes up to your waist and it must be at least 100 kilograms. You've seen a few of these up at Geoponics. They're easy to catch, and their spines and berries naturally fall off and are edible. A chewy, renewable source of food, kinda like jerky. Maybe you could catch this one. Just observe it. Miraculously, it doesn't even notice you're here. You watch it bumble around. It's so cute! It has no legs, just a scaled belly that it kind of flexes and undulates to get ground. And unlike a slug, it isn't slimy at all. Actually, it's pretty darn adorable. You come out of the trees into a large grassy clearing. In the middle is a... well... you can only describe it as a pedestal. In the middle of a cradle of flowers sits a massive egg, easily larger than any egg you've ever seen before. It's white with red flecks, and it's just sitting here, in the middle of the empty clearing, totally unprotected. Leave it. You decide to take a shortcut through the jungle to a path you were sure was just up ahead. And now you're lost. Everything looks the same here. The plants are too high to see any landmarks, and you swear some of them move around when you aren't looking. You try to check your positioning with your holopalm, but the damn thing isn't working, and won't connect to long-range communications either. Typical. Utopia did warn you. The comms were flaky out here. You think you can tell north from the position of the two suns, but that's it. Orienteer a way out of here. You climb a tree and chart a path through the wilderness from above. With that information in your holopalm, navigating to the nearest landmark is a breeze. You're too worn out and tired to continue. You have to go home now. Marz whines.
Nothing ever happens here. Please, 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 just anything. I'm dying here. I've watched every holovid, and I've done every quiz and every holozine, and I'm so tired of being a teenager on this stupid rock. It's been almost 5 years, and I don't even have a boyfriend.
I found something you might like.
Huh.
Marz laughs, taking the crystal and turning it over in her hands, inspecting it.
Well, I've had better birthday gifts this year, but I admit, this crystal is pretty fabulous. I'll add it to my collection.
Marz is watching a vid from Earth on her holopalm. She gestures you over and you sync your holopalm with hers. The audio tracks come through your hearspeak. Marz knows every word. Beside you, she recites the dialogue perfectly along with the other actors.
Since the day we met, I devoted my life to finding you. I searched every train station, every coffee shop, every museum and park for you.
She says.
My every waking thought was only of you.
Her voice goes higher.
And I dreamed of you.
She says.
Every night, my heart called to yours in the dark. I never hoped to dream I'd find you again. I'm here now.
She says, playing the first part again.
I'm here, and I'm never leaving your side again.
Marz drags her hands down to her face as the couple in the vid kiss passionately.
Ugh!
She exclaims.
I've seen this vid 100 times, and the end always makes me want to yards. They met on a train once and spend forever looking for each other. Like, move on, you know? It's not like living here where there's only like 100 people to pick from. You're in a huge city. Go find anyone else.
Why do you keep watching it? Marz sighs, exasperated.
I've already seen everything else worth watching.
Before you can protest, she puts up a hand.
Okay, fine. I do like the city parts. Like, isn't it post-real to imagine cities so big you could get lost in them? So many people that you could meet someone and never see them again in your life?
Marz waves away the vid screen.
Sometimes I think I should have been born back on Earth, not on this dumb spaceship.
She mock punches the hull of the ship behind her.
All those cities and people, and the stuff you could do. Watching new vids, going to concerts. The only culture here is grown in a lab.
Marz sighs dreamily.
And the shopping. They have so much stuff on Earth. anything you could dream, not just the rubbish our old nanoprinters can make. I'm bored of everything I own.
Marz complains.
Speaking of shopping, do you want to trade some kudos for one of my old jackets? My dad say I can't print more stuff until I get rid of something. I'd say 50 kudos sounds fair?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Marz takes off her jacket and watches critically as you try it on.
Well, it matches your hair,
she says.
But it kind of puckers at the shoulders. It was really tailor printed to fit me.
She almost looks like she's going to take it back for a second before putting her hands up in surrender.
No, I admit, it looks good on you. Makes you look posh.
The only spot of excitement this month was when you filled in for Moni when she needed to use the bathroom. And just by chance, you happened to notice a small pack of Hop-Eyes starting to chew through some cables. Moni is a little peeved you got the accolades from spotting them, but it's not like she can complain. You weren't even supposed to be on lookout duty. Half the crops you pull look blighted, like they're moldy before you even pull them off the plant. Many of the leaves are pale and yellow. Your mom takes one look at them and starts muttering about nitrogen deficiency. You almost feel guilty breaking for lunch. The kitchens deliver you a watery sort of potato soup with some pale greens floating in it, and you eat every flavorless drop. You can't bear to waste a single spoonful. It barely gives you enough energy to make it through the rest of the day. This sucks. Your dad is a total nerd when it comes to crunching statistics about the colony's food production. Through him, you learn that the average person eats approximately 200 kilograms of dry rations every year. That works out to about 2,000 calories a day. There are about 100 colonists to feed, at 2,000 calories a day. So in a year, you need to produce about... well, no matter how many times you think it over, the math is grim. Even with all your hard work, geoponics is producing far, far less than the colony needs to survive. It all feels so hopeless. Knowing that all of your hard work still hasn't been enough, well, it breaks something in you. Hunger and desperation boil together in your stomach as you work, like bitter acid. You're working so hard, and you're still starving. You deserve to eat. You need to eat. If you don't eat, you're not going to be able to work as hard as you need to. So when it's just you and a wheelbarrow of anemic-looking carrots, what do? Don't steal it! It takes an extraordinary amount of willpower, but you get all the carrots weighed and delivered to the kitchens. This food is for everyone. It's not a lot of food for 100 people, but at least you'll all starve together.
I've been learning a lot about systems.
Dis says, writing on his hollow palm.
Like the water cycle and the nitrogen cycle. food webs and decomposition, stuff like that. It's pretty cool, even if it's all textbooks from Earth.
He looks wistfully out at the wilderness.
There's so much we don't know about this place.
Does this interest you?
For my birthday?
He mumbles.
Oh, thank you. This looks like it's from a very rare plant. Did you find it while you were exploring?
Tang looks up from her work, holding her stomach as it rumbles audibly.
What? Again? Who cursed me with a mortal form? I did not ask for this.
She reaches into her bag and pulls out a protein bar.
The downside to requiring less sleep is that the body burns more calories while awake.
She says, taking a bite.
The calorie intake is much higher, similar to that of a bodybuilder. Which is fitting, as I do have the strongest brain in the colony.
Here, I have something for you.
It seems you've remembered my birthday.
Tang says, taking the roots and turning them over in her hands. Her lip curls in distaste at the dirt that still cling to them.
How thoughtful of you. I have much to do today, but I'll set these roots aside to analyze later.
She turns to walk away, then remembers herself.
Thank you.
She adds, almost as an afterthought. Tangent looks up from her hollow palm, blinking as her eyes refocus on the middle distance, and then on you. Her previously long hair is gone, buzzed close to her scalp. You almost didn't recognize her when you first saw her. You wonder if it was caused by a lab accident or something.
Hello, soul.
She says, already cagey.
Did you need something?
No, I just came by to say hello. The faintest hint of relief passes across Tang's face. You get the impression that not pressing her on her personal appearance was a wise choice.
Oh, well. Hello then.
Tang replies. She raises her hand as if it to push her hair out of her face, but stops when she realizes what she's doing.
I'm rather busy at the moment, actually. So, if you don't mind.
You can take a hint. Your mom was really counting on the rice crops to flourish on Vertumna, but no luck. The soil just isn't right. It hurts to have lost such a stable crop. You find your mom almost collapsed over a sack of soil, her head in her hands. When she hears you, her head snaps up and she wipes her eyes. You try to leave quietly before she realizes you saw her cry. This sucks. You hear an uproar from the other side of the fields and run over, worried there's been an accident. Unbelievably, people are cheering. Your mom proudly holds up a potato plant over her head in one hand, her biceps straining under the weight of the tubers and the clumpy brown soil. You count 3, 5, 7. 7 perfect, mature potatoes. On just this one plant, stretching all around you in the field. The leafy green tops of the other plants wave in the breeze. You look around at the other agriculturists. Some of them have tears of relief in their eyes, and everyone is smiling and laughing. It's been 3 seasons of heavy food rationing, getting more and more strict as the year dragged on and the fields continued to struggle. You've been wasting away. You all have. It's not just the lack of calories. There just aren't enough vitamins and good stuff in the food you are eating. Your muscles ache all the time. Sometimes you feel strangely euphoric, filled with inexplicable energy. But often it feels like there are weights tied to your shoulders, pulling you down. You are tougher than most, but you still have trouble sleeping despite being tired all the time. You spend the whole day in a dazed fog. At least you hardly feel the hunger now. For months, the idea of food plagued your thoughts, each one like a dagger in your stomach. They've been replaced by an odd sense of peace. Now you feel half tethered to this reality, floating above everything like a balloon. Your friends stop working and retreat to their quarters. You lie to each other on the HoloNet, all saying you're okay, just taking it easy, waiting for the harvest. Well, the harvest came and went, as meager as ever. Your mother still hasn't given up and never rests, never stops working, as much as your dad begs her to. She must be sleeping in geoponics because you hardly see her in the family quarters anymore. From where you lie nestled in your bed in your cozy fugue, it all seems like far too much effort to bother with. Help your mom in geoponics. You're out there in the fields with her, being her sidekick, helping fetch things. She never slows down. When the roboplow finally breaks under the pressure, she doesn't. She's out there even longer, doing everything by hand. Both your parents feel responsible for this famine, but as head of geoponics, your mom takes it personally. She's been skipping meals, relying on water and pressed soy bar rations, just enough calories to keep a body moving, but not enough to stay healthy. Yet she never lets up working herself to the bone, barely even sleeping, increasingly sallow-eyed and gaunt. You and your dad try to slow her down, but, well, she's a stubborn woman. If not her, she says, then who? You and your dad are in the lounge, slowly sipping your vegetable broth, when there's a commotion at the doors. Someone's run in, gasping for breath, yelling for you and your father to come down to geoponics. You run over, knowing deep in the pit of your stomach that something terrible has happened. When you see the faces of the agriculturists, your mom's people, you know that feeling is real. Your dad sees her body first. He lets out a cry like something you've never heard before. A deep, unimaginable pain, dragged up from the darkest parts of where fear lives. Your dad falls to his knees beside the frail body of your mother. He pulls her into his arms and sobs, wretched and agonized. You don't even know what to think. Your mom always seemed larger than her body, but seeing her now, there's nothing there. Just a fragile shell. They tell you she didn't even cry out. She just went to her knees and lay down in the dirt. And that was it. She's gone. Your mother's body is taken to the incinerator room, and that night the colony gathers to pay their respects. Do you join them? Attend the funeral. Like Tammy's funeral, the incinerator room has been cleared and a wreath of flowers placed over the mouth of the organics recycler. They are white distrantia, your mother's favorite flower, carefully carried from Earth with the hopes of it flourishing on Vertumna, just like you. You stand with your father and Aunt Anne. Eudicot and the rest of the council are here as well, including Rhett. You're surprised to see tears rolling down his face. He's such a hard-ass in the garrison. Cal's here with all the other agriculturists. The rest of the colony waits in the canteen to offer their condolences after the service. Governor Eudicot gives a eulogy.
As a colony, we share our blessings,
she begins solemnly.
However, today in sad company we gather to share the burden of our grief. Crescent was born on Earth, but she, more than many of us, exemplified the spirit of our endeavor to bring life beyond the stars. She bore life, not only in her body, but bringing it forth from the ground she so faithfully attended. The debt we owe her is the kind that can never be repaid.
She continues.
It is with a deep and unbearable grief that we must continue on without her, in awe and respect for her sacrifice, the depth of which was never expected of her, but which she did not expect of anyone else. It is on her strong shoulders that she carries us still.
Eudicot closes the door to the recycler, and the particle disintegrators begin to reclaim the molecules that once formed your mother. Your father squeezes your shoulder, making a small, choked-off noise of pain.
As a community, we remember fluorescent. As a community, we return her body to the soil that nourishes us. In this way, her sacrifice is recognized in the manifest body of the colony.
The ceremony is adjourned to the canteen, where a somber wake is held in your mother's memory. There isn't enough food to dull the emotions, and your empty stomach only reminds you of her unfinished work. Your father is the new head of geoponics. In a few hours, he receives your mother's remains so that he can add them to the colony's precious supply of brown soil from Earth. You touch the cool lid of the container, marveling that your mother could fit in such a small box.
You don't have to be okay.
Your dad says quietly. His voice is thick with emotion.
I know. I'm not. I have to keep going where she left off, but if you can, you should take some time off.
Take the month off. The prospect of just going back to work like everything is normal is too much to handle. The sun dips below the horizon and glow begins. You end up spending the whole month alternating between sleeping, scrolling the HoloNet, and staring into space. It's restful, at least. A few days after the funeral, surveyors return with an unexpected bounty from the Valley of Vertigo. It's enough to survive for another month, until the new year. Maybe if you keep rationing. The colony will continue to limp along, but without your mother. The roar wakes you. It would wake the dead. It shakes the walls, rumbles through the ship's hull, and makes your heart skip a beat. You're paralyzed by a sudden clench of fear in your gut. Through your porthole window, you hear metal screeching and people shouting. Then another roar. Guttural and rumbling like the sound of a mountain collapsing. Something enormous is out there. Stay indoors. Your dad can't hide the look of fear on his face, but he tries.
Sounds like we better get a move on to the assembly point, hey kiddo?
You head for the crush together. You huddle with your buds, Marz, Dis, Cal. Because it's the middle of the night, almost everyone was in their beds. Some people are still wearing their pajamas and sleep bonnets. Only Moni is missing. The children's creche is buried deep in the belly of the stratospheric, making it one of the safest places you could be. Even so, the youngest children are scared, and there's a lot of crying. Watch holovids with the young ones. Somehow, even with the sirens blaring, some of the youngest drift in your arms. After an hour, someone in the defense squad rushes in and orders everyone to leave the creche. The battle's getting close to the stratospheric. Before you can even get everyone to their feet, you feel the ship lurch and resettle at a different angle. Something is attacking the ship itself. The children scream. Some scatter in all directions, and others sit there, paralyzed with fear. Without warning, the entire wall of the creche just peels away, like a tin can, letting in a rush of cold night air tinged with the ozone of blast rifle fire. You look up and see it, up close, face to... It has no face. In a place of a face, or even a head, its body just unzips, revealing a mess of writhing pink tentacles and blinking eyes. Moni and her brother Calm are among the security squad, trying wildly to divert it away from the living quarters. It smashes into the ship again and roars, calling up a terrible noise from somewhere within its seeping wet craw, and all the children scream. You have to get out of here. Fight your fear and save the children. It takes a tremendous effort to keep your head. Your calm helps the children, who finally listen to you and flee the creche. Your dad ushers you into the engineering wing, where you cower with the others, trying not to panic. All around you, metal screams and buckles, and great tremors vibrate through the ship. Finally, after what seems like hours, the noises stop, and congruence sounds the all clear. Your dad checks the council bulletins on his holopalm.
Oh, no.
He moans quietly.
No.
The council calls an all-colony meeting to face the aftermath of the attack. In the oppressive gloom of glow, you gather near engineering with the other survivors. It's one of the few buildings still standing. The corpse of the faceless still sits in the caved-in wreckage of the stratospheric, spilling its flaccid pink tentacles from its horrible zipper-toothed maw. It's already beginning to stink. You can't forget what you saw. Your mind keeps replaying that terrible moment. The faceless rearing up and obscuring the sky. Moni and her brother looking so small before it. Governor Eudicot was killed by the small creatures that swarmed command during the attack. In her absence, Seek addresses the colony. The council acknowledges the bravery of the defense squad, citing their heroism in finally taking down the Faceless. If only it hadn't gotten away from them and stampeded right into the stratospheric. At least they stopped it before it got to engineering, as it would have activated the reactor and left a crater the size of an asteroid impact. Geoponics is gone. The greenhouse is destroyed and fields trampled. After a year of suffering, starving, and only barely scraping by, you're not just back where you started. It's even worse. Everything your mom sacrificed herself for, gone in one night. The entire front half of the stratospheric has been destroyed. The living quarters, the canteen, the garrison, the lounge, even the creche. It's all gone. It's only by some stroke of luck that people hiding in the creche weren't all killed. Seek solemnly reads the names of those who lost their lives. Too many, including Governor Eudicot. You all stand for a moment of silence. You feel the weight of the loss like a blow to your chest. Moni and her family cry out when her brother Calm's name is called, and their quiet sobbing continues through the silence. With the living quarters destroyed, everyone moves into the engineering wing for shelter. You're crowded into the classroom with other families. The adults try to make it seem like a sleepover, but you're all still so shaken. Moni cries about her brother and screams at anyone who tries to comfort her. Eventually, you just ignore her grief, as painful as it is to hear her sobbing at night. You feel you've been awake for days, and you'll never fully sleep again. You try, but you keep jerking awake, crying out in fear. Eventually you fall asleep sitting up, held in your father's arms. Your sleep is fitful, but mercifully dreamless. Rest for now.